Welcome class to our today's lesson. Today we are going to look at computer hardware components. So when we talk of computer hardware components, we are simply referring to the physical components that make up a computer, because a computer is a system, and when you talk of a system, it means it has separate components or devices, and each and every component or device performs a given task, but all those components must work together for the computer to achieve its objective. So basically there are four major components that make up a computer in terms of the hardware components. Number one is the input devices, number two is output devices, number three is processing devices, then number four is storage devices. So basically you have a diagram that illustrates or shows all the four major components in terms of the hardware components of our computer. So briefly, you can start with input devices. Basically, these are a class of devices that enable the computer to acquire data from the external environment, and these devices can be classified depending on their functions. So we can have those what we call typing devices, and typing devices meaning the user enters data into a computer by typing. So they have various keys or classes of keys where you can use to enter data. Then we have what we call pointing devices. So pointing devices enable the user to enter data by pointing on the computer screen and making selections by basically just pointing on a given object on the screen and clicking on a button. Then number two, you want to focus on what we call processor or the central processing unit. So basically it's the brain of the computer. So all the conversion of data into information is basically done by a processor, and basically another function of the processor is to monitor and control the working of all other devices. So how the input devices acquires data, how storage stores data, how output can display information is being controlled by the processor. So the processor has three components. One is control unit, number two is main memory, then number three is register. So we can start with the work of the control unit. So control unit basically performs three major functions. One is what we call fetching. So fetching means going to the memory of a computer and retrieving data, retrieving instructions and information. Basically, if let's say you want to display something from memory in terms of information, it's work of the control unit to fetch for that information. If you have data like 2 and 4, so 2 and 4 are data, then the plus is an example of an instruction. So if you want to perform this operation by adding 2 and 4 as data items, we are going to use this instruction or operation, the plus. So both the data and the instruction will be loaded or stored in the memory. So the work of the controller to fetch and retrieve those particular data items. Now the data items are going to be stored in what we call memory locations. And memory locations basically are in what we call main memory and the secondary storage. Another function of the control unit is basically to what we call decode. Once we have an instruction like this plus instruction, how it's going to be stored in memory will be different. So that hardware that's supposed to add the 2 and 4 cannot understand a given instruction. So it's work of the control unit to put that instruction into a form that the hardware can understand and execute. Then another function of what we call control unit is basically to execute. Execute means monitoring that operation. If, for example, you're adding 2 and 4, it has to oversee that operation. We have a device that will add number 2 and 4, but the CPU has to oversee that given operation. Then you can proceed to what we call main memory. So main memory is a component of the processor that stores data, instructions, and information temporarily, meaning for a short period of time. So main memory is also known as the working storage of a computer, because anything which the computer is working on must be stored in main memory. Then lastly, we have what we call registers. So registers are temporal storage locations